I'm here today with Charlotte Wood, the author of Animal People. He's a peripheral character, Stephen, in The Children.
Yes.
Why did you decide that you wanted to make him central for your next novel?
I didn't realise when I was writing The Children that that's what would happen, but I did, you know, when you finish a book and there's this little lull and you're not sure what you're going to do next, but I sort of found that I was still thinking about him in ways that I wasn't thinking about the other people in that family. Especially Mandy, the main character of The Children, I sort of understood her fully by the time I finished that book. But Stephen, he's peripheral, but he's quite in the, he's in the frame the whole time of that book. I hadn't really resolved my own feelings towards him, I guess, and I thought there was more for me to discover about him as a character.
Because you've set him up in The Children as being something of a misfit with some unresolved issues about his family. And he's got a job there which is already a job that is a bit of a non-job, isn't it? I mean, he's kind of transcribing police interviews, but it's a job that allows him to be always on the outside.
Yeah, that's interesting observation. I think he's the sort of person who's always had crappy dead-end jobs, who just has a job to make money to pay the rent and that kind of stuff.
And yet he's clearly intelligent.
Yeah.
But he's lacking in ambition.
He has no ambition at all. He kind of despises ambition. He's one of those people who thinks that, you know, he sort of likes to think of himself as a person who's separate from contemporary bullshit, you know, which allows him to then not have to face up to quite a lot of things about himself as a grown-up man. I mean, he's sort of, I see him kind of as an innocent, although he's too old to be an innocent now, but he's one of these men, and you know, I've known a lot of guys like this who are really smart, really funny, loving kind of people, but they're sort of eternally adolescent in some way. And he, you know, even at 39 that he is in Animal People, and he's got a new job, his new job is working as a sandwich hand in the fast food kiosk at the zoo. He still remains this kind of slightly lost soul, kind of drifty. He sort of thinks life takes you and you float through life.
And he's so alienated from the culture around him. He doesn't really seem to connect with most of its values, does he?
What sort of values?
Well, for example, you know, he sees that people are labelled as dog people in the subset, I suppose they're a subset of animal people. He works at the zoo, but he really has a lot of contempt for people who fetishize animals.
Yeah, he doesn't understand animal people. He's allergic, for a start, to dog and cat hair.
Which I think is something that you took from your own life, yes.
And I do think that sets you up to, if you know that if you touch an animal, you know, you're very likely to start having watering eyes and raking at your face and sneezing and carrying on like that, it does sort of put a distance between you and furry creatures and sets up some kind of, maybe fear might be too strong a word, but certainly discomfort. And but in Stephen's case, you know, it's not just an allergy. He has this sort of mistrust, I suppose, of the sentimentality that often goes along with, you know, and I think you're talking initially about the neighbours of his house up the road in the city where he lives, where there's a big German Shepherd that always comes and sort of insinuates itself upon him in a very personal way, and he hates it. But the people who own the dog always just sort of look at it as a cute little thing, and they go, "Oh, he loves to say hello, doesn't he?" You know, and Stephen's sort of discomforted by this, and working at the zoo, he's just observed a lot of the time the way that people, you know, as I have observed, that people behave very strangely.